Yes, why budget support? This is a good question. You know that we have been discussing for many years, since 2005, on how to improve the collaboration, the cooperation between the donors and partner countries under what we call the aid effectiveness agenda. We started to discuss this in Paris, in Ghana, and in Busan. And there are key principles around this process. First of all, alignment of donors to policy from the partner countries, better harmonization between donors to reinforce ownership and accountability. And budget support as aid modality respond to those principles and challenge. This is the main reason because through budget support, our objective is to help partner countries to implement their own policies and to achieve the ultimate goals that we share in terms of poverty reduction, consolidate democracy, and also to improve growth, inclusive and sustainable growth. So, and budget support, if the conditions are met, is the best aid modality to achieve those objectives and according to the principles that have been defined within the aid effectiveness agenda. In terms of the financial support, it's around 25% of our aid to partner countries all around the world, different regions more than the others, but in average is about 25% of our aid, which means that in terms of disbursement per year is about 1,700,000,000 euros each year on budget support. So the aid modality is a substantial amount of money that goes through the budget of partner countries to help them to implement their policies. But also budget support is not only about financial support, it's also about capacity development. We help partner countries to strengthen their capacity in areas that are very important, policy formulation, but also on public financial management, on the macroeconomic issues. Is also about performance, to help partner countries to improve their performance in terms of results on poverty reduction, on social sectors, health and education, and also about policy dialogue. And policy dialogue should be a win-win situation. It's important for us to understand what the partner countries are doing in order to provide them budget support, but also to exchange views, experience, best practice, and advice. And this is part of our policy dialogue. So budget support is 4 pillars. And with this, the objective, as I mentioned, is to help countries to implement their own policies. So we have to be aware that is a controversial aid modality and sometimes is not well understood. And the reason why we have new guidelines and we start with a new policy because budget support was challenged at the different levels by different stakeholders. We had our member states, for instance, in our discussions that they want to see a better articulation with budget support with our main objective, which is still reduction, poverty reduction, but with the other principles that are also part of the Lisbon Treaty, for instance, consolidate democracy, and knowing that budget support reflects political choice, is important to see how those choices are reflected into the budget. So, and this was an important issue, political issues like democracy, rule of law, and also human rights were very important in our discussions. Another challenge, it was in our discussions with the Court of Auditors to improve our methodology, to improve the way we assess budget support, the eligibility criteria and the conditions, and the risk, how we treat the risk. So we felt in 2010 that it was time to revise our policy. Last time we did that, it was in 2000. So 10 years later, after 10 years of implementation, lessons learned, evaluations, we felt that it was the right moment. And we had a very inclusive process. We prepared a green paper in 2010, wide consultation in Europe, also in the partner countries. We discussed with all the partners, international organizations like the World Bank, the IMF, regional banks, before we start to formulate the new policy, because it was important for us to understand the problems, the issues, but also how the other partners they reacted. And after that, we came with a new policy, a new communication in October 2011. We had the support of the member states in May 2012, the Council conclusions, where the member states strongly support the new policy. And finally, in September last year, our guidelines were approved by the Commissioner. What we want with these guidelines is to improve what was already good with the former policy. For instance, issues like the focus on results and the performance that we had already, to have part of our disbursement linked to the performance on the results of the partner countries. But also we want to improve the way we assess those conditions. But also we have introduced important change in the new policy. For instance, we have introduced a new eligibility criteria, a new condition, which is about the transparency and oversight of the budget. And this is to reinforce the accountability of the process, because what we want through this eligibility criteria is that the partner country, they publish all the relevant information regarding the budgetary process, in order for civil society organizations to check the budget, how money is collected and spent, other stakeholders, the parliaments, and also their audit institutions. So this was very important to reinforce the accountability aspect of our budget support operation. From our side also there was a commitment from the EU side to publish relevant information regarding our agreements with the partner countries and the conditions that are attached to those agreements. Another important issue was the risk management framework that you put in place. You know, all aid modalities, there is a risk, but budget support, particularly, we have systemic risk linked to the way that public financial management is managed in the partner country, on the macroeconomic issues, on the political issues. And this was a request from the European Court of Auditors and support by the member states. And we came with a completely new risk management framework. And we have improved also the way that the Commission manage budget support. We have created at headquarters level what we call a budget support steering committee. It's a kind of board that is shared by our Director General. It involves the senior management of both DEFCO and also the EAS, and we work closely with the EAS and also with the other service, particularly the DG ECFIN, Director General for Economic and Finance, particularly on the neighborhood countries, but also their expertise on macroeconomic issues. And this board is to deal with the most difficult cases and budget support when we feel that the risk, and using this risk management framework, when the risk is substantial and high, and when we feel that the Director General has to engage personally on the decision-making process. And then we have the board that is shared by him, but also he can refer to the Commissioner if he feels that he needs also to refer to the Commissioner. The decision will be taken at this level. We are trying now to put in place at the regional level structures to help our delegations also to improve the way they manage budget support. There are ongoing discussions because we work in a very large scale. We provide budget support to about 85 countries, and we have more or less 125 ongoing operation budget support, which requires a lot of expertise in the whole network. So what we are trying to do is to concentrate in different regions this expertise in order to be able to provide advice to the delegations in the region. And this is something that we start now to put gradually in place, and we hope that this year we have the first 4 regional structure in place, and later on we see the experience. The reaction that we expect from the delegation is, of course, to apply the new policy, but also to understand that with this new policy we have introduced more flexibility. For instance, before we have either what we used to call general budget support or sectoral budget support. It was more one size fits all. With the new policy, we have introduced three categories to respond better to the political, economic, and social context of the partner country. So what we expect from our delegation is first that they look at their country to assess what we want to achieve with budget support. Why budget support and not other aid modality? Because budget support should be seen as part of portfolio of different aid modalities that we want to mobilize to help country. Once we have seen this, decided, and to look at the political, economic, and social context of the partner country, then we can respond much better, either try to tackle and to support the country to improve the core systems in terms of public financial management, macroeconomic stability, or public sector reform. In this case, we can provide what we call good governance and development contract. To capture these two dimensions, the political, the governance dimension, and development dimension, and to apply the guideline consistent with this kind of contract. If the challenge is more to support the country to reform sectors or to in terms of quality service delivery, what we have is a sector reform contract that we can apply, for instance, on health, on education, and to design the program according to the objective that we want to achieve, the indicators that are related to the sector. We have a certain situation, countries that are in a situation of fragility, for instance, or in the transition process, then we can apply a state building contract to help those countries first to rebuild the core state functions, basic service delivery, and to help them on the transition process. So what we expect is more analytical work, better understanding of the situation of the partner country, and make use of the flexibility that we have with the new guidelines. But we know that this requires of training, and we are now providing training to our colleagues in the delegation, but also at the headquarters level. First is the way we interact at headquarters level with the delegation. Of course, in the front line, you have our colleagues from the geographical services. We have experts on budget support in different geographical services, covering Africa, Asia, the neighborhood, and Latin America, and those colleagues can provide advice to delegations. We have our unit here, also we can provide advice. We have different quality support groups that also look at the different proposals, and also they can help the delegations to improve their proposal and the management of budget support programs. As I mentioned before, now we have prepared training also for colleagues in the delegation in different areas. So a general view how to manage budget support operation, but colleagues can even go further and improve their knowledge on different aspects, for instance, on macroeconomic issues, on the PFM issues, public financial management issues. So we provide also this kind of training, and of course through also regional seminars. We have been 2 weeks ago in Bangkok, and we will cover other regions also, and to interact with our colleagues, to respond to their questions, but also to get also their views, because we have colleagues that know very well budget support, they are in the delegations, and also it's important to interact to understand how we can improve the way we are going to operationalize our guidelines. So I think this is a top-down, bottom-up process on the interaction between colleagues, and of course using all instruments and means that we have to support them. Of course, budget support is a key process in terms of aid effectiveness agenda, which requires also coordination and harmonization amongst donors. The Commission is not the only donor to provide budget support, and I think it will be important also to look at those aspects, because we discuss on the aid effectiveness agenda how to improve things. And I feel that also we need to improve the way we coordinate, particularly in the field, because we should not create additional transaction costs with the partner countries to have heavy procedures to coordinate amongst ourselves, the donors, with the partner country. So if we simplify on one side, because budget support is different with the project you have procedures to implement the project, and it can be quite heavy. Budget support is more to use the country systems. So it's not an additional system that we are going to plug into country system, which is much easier for the country to manage the funds, to implement their own policies with their systems, and they train their own people according to their own systems. But we should not create, but this requires, of course, coordination between donors and with the partner country. But we have to be careful when we coordinate with the partner country not to create an additional burden in terms of harmonization and meetings with the partner country. So I think this is an important aspect that we need to be aware as a donor community, but also with the partner country. We need to provide results, and this is something that everybody has to be aware, donors and the partner country. It's not like a project. When you build a road, you can show the road. When you build schools or health centers, you can show the results of your project. On budget support, we rely very much on the capacity of the partner country to monitoring and show results of the implementation of their own policies. So some partners, they attempt to attribute those results to themselves, which is a little bit tricky, you know. So we contribute to a process, but everybody has to make an effort to improve this, because the public needs to understand in Europe, the taxpayers, the civil society, the parliaments, the court of auditors, they need to understand what kind of results we want to achieve and how we demonstrate. And also in the partner country, they need to understand their civil society, what we can achieve with this instrument. And this requires an effort of both sides to be able to demonstrate those results.